If you want to think like a user experience designer, there's one really big mental shift you have to make. And it's this. You've got to learn to be comfortable in a world where there's no single perfect right answer. So let's dive into what that actually means. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if the problem you're working on just doesn't have a single right solution? Now, that idea can be super uncomfortable, right? Especially if you're coming from a background like engineering or science where things are often pretty black and white. Learning to live with and even embrace that ambiguity is absolutely essential. It's really the bridge that takes you from a purely technical way of thinking to a design mindset. And look, this isn't about throwing logic out the window, not at all. It's about using that same logic, but in a totally different way. All right, so let's break down these two different ways of thinking, one that's all about certainty and another that's comfortable with ambiguity. So, on one side, you've got the engineering mindset. It's incredibly powerful, right? You have a clear problem, and there's a correct answer. A piece of code either works or it has a bug. Simple. But the world of UX, well, it's a lot messier. There are often multiple good solutions, and the best one, it always depends on the context. And here's the kicker. Every single decision you make comes with a trade-off. And that's exactly why a designer who kicks things off by asking, "What's the correct solution here?" is already starting from the wrong place. That question just assumes a world that doesn't really exist when you're dealing with people and products. Instead, the question becomes something much more powerful. What is the best possible decision we can make right now with what we know about our users, our business goals, and our tech constraints? See the difference? That's the big shift. You stop searching for correctness and start focusing on making a well-reasoned decision. Okay, enough theory. Let's get practical and see how this actually works in the real world. We're going to talk about the art of the trade-off. Okay, here's a classic one you've probably seen a million times. When you open an app, what should be front and center? The login field for people who already have an account, or the big sign-up button for new folks? It sounds like such a simple choice, but it's really not. Because you guessed it, there is no single right answer. The best choice is all about your specific situation. Like, is this an app people use every day for work? If so, yeah, making logins super easy for returning users is probably the way to go. But what if it's a brand new app and your main goal is just getting new users? Well, then maybe that sign up button needs to be the star of the show. It all comes down to who your users are, what the business needs, and so on. There's no magic formula, just good reasoning. All right, let's try another one. Picture this. You opened your favorite food delivery app. You're hungry. What's the very first thing that app should show you? And this is a perfect example of a trade-off. Let's say the app prioritizes restaurants with big discounts. Great, that's awesome for users on a budget. But in doing that, you might be burying the places that could get food to them in 15 minutes. Now, flip it. What if you prioritize delivery speed? You'll make the impatient, hungry users super happy, but they might completely miss out on a 2-for-1 deal. You see? You can't optimize for everything at once. A choice for one thing is almost always a choice against something else. So if every single decision is a trade-off, how do designers get anything done? How do you not just get totally paralyzed by all the options? Well, they rely on a consistent thinking pattern, a kind of mental framework to cut through all that ambiguity. This is pretty much the mental checklist that good designers run through, almost automatically. First, who is this for? Who is the user? Second, what's their situation? What's the context they're in? 3, out of all the problems we could solve, what's the most important one to tackle right now? 4, what are our constraints? Time, budget, technology. And finally, 5, what happens if we get this wrong? What's the downside if this fails? You see how this pattern keeps you focused on what really matters? It stops you from asking weak questions like, I don't know, what looks best? Or just blindly copying the competition with, well, what is everyone else doing? Instead, you're building your solution from the ground up, starting with the user and their real problem. And when you think this way, you end up with decisions you can actually defend. So imagine a designer is explaining why they built a new attendance system for a college. They wouldn't just say, we made it automatic. No, they'd say something like this. We chose to make attendance tracking automatic because after talking to users, we learned that speed and consistency were way more important to the administrative staff than offering a more flexible manual option in this context. That's everything. It's all about the justification. And that's a huge takeaway here. In design, people don't just care about your final choice. They care about how you got there.
your explanation, your reasoning. That is the real deliverable.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. It really boils down to the power of asking why. This is the secret to shifting your goal from the impossible task of being right to the much more useful and achievable goal of being reasonable. You see this all the time with designers who are just starting out. They'll finish a design, hold it up, and ask their manager, is this right? Is it wrong? They're looking for that simple validation, like getting an A+ in school. But we've just spent this whole time talking about why that's just the wrong question. The question you should be asking is this: is this decision reasonable? Can I explain it? Can I defend it? Is it a logical step forward based on everything I know about the user, the problem, and the constraints we're dealing with?
Because that right there is what design is all about. It's not some magic act where you pull a perfect idea out of a hat. No, it's informed judgment, it's based on evidence, it's made while dealing with real-world constraints, and it's done with enough humility to know that you're probably going to have to revisit and improve it later.
So if there is just one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this: you are not judged by being right. You are judged by how well you reason. Because look, a well-reasoned decision can always be tweaked and improved. But a decision based on flawed thinking, you can't polish your way out of that.